Welcome to the Strap and Link podcast, where we cover brands from their inception to their latest release.
It's the Montress Tudor.
Like I said, better movement, spring drive
So,
potentially, Rolex Oyster Perpetual.
There's Super Ocean here. Now you see this kind of renaissance of Tudor. Finally, in 2016, they achieved the spring drive with an 8-day power. The podcast for watch lovers by watch lovers. New episodes every first and third Monday of the month.
All right. Welcome back to the Strap and Link podcast, everybody. This is Brett, once again, joined by my good buddy, my co-host here, David.
What's going on?
What's up, man?
Yeah,
You've
living
moved
the
into
dream.
a house.
Yep, new location finally. Hopefully a little more settled down now. But
Nice.
We'll see. You'll see the background behind me starting to change as the months go on. But hopefully here in the next couple months we'll have something cool behind me and be a little more stylish like yourself.
Nice. Yeah, I've added bits and pieces as I go, so changed it up a lot. Awesome, man. Well, glad to be back doing just like a brand review episode. It's been a while, feels like, so I think the last brand we did was, I guess, Breitling. No. Sorry, we did Omega. So we did Omega. But then we had like the Monta co-owners, Mike and Justin on. Then we had Miguel from SoCal, kind of wedged in between Omega. So it feels like it's been a lot longer than what it probably has been.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited for this. I've always been kind of intrigued by this brand and, the love and the cult following that Cartier has behind them. So digging into this was fun and just kind of giving my opinion on a few things. It'll be interesting. Yeah. I'm very excited to hear all the listeners' opinions as well. So definitely be commenting and sliding up into our DMs, letting us know what you think of this brand, because it's intriguing how expensive and well loved a jewelry brand is for watches, when normally that's the no. You go online anywhere and they say you better not be buying any fashion brand watches, blah blah blah. But Cartier has their own set aside. They're the one exception to that rule.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. I think maybe like right after the history, because since it is a jewelry brand, it was much different research than what I think you would agree with that too, compared to Breitling or Omega or Tudor or whatever, because it is a jewelry company essentially that they have some watches. So
yeah, normally when we're looking up these history things and going to their website, it's everything about watches. It's pretty easy to find. So now you have to maneuver your way a little bit, and it's just, like I said, a little different, but very cool. I still love their watches.
It's also marketed quite differently. That's maybe the big. Well, I think the history itself, because since it's not it wasn't founded and started just for watches, and it's never been just about watches. So it is. The literal history is a little bit different, but also, also, like I said, it's marketed quite differently. So when you're on their website, there's not as much like specs and technical details about every one of the watches. Definitely. It's more of, hey, look at this blue jewel that we put on the crown, and the shape of the bezel and the
more of the fashion on the side.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's quite different. But hey, it stands out. I think it makes it a little bit fun. So we'll get into that. But really quickly, want to dive into just one or two little bits of news. I saw that our friends over at Monta, they just released V3, the latest iteration of their dive watch, their flagship, kind of what started Monta out, was their dive watch, the Ocean King. So, we had them on the show, like we talked about it a little bit ago, back in May. They gave us some hints about that watch. We've finally seen it. Ceramic bezel looks great, albeit maybe somewhat familiar. All black. Initial thoughts from me. I mean, great looking watch. I think it's, it looks just as good as their SkyQuest. I think a negative for me, it's maybe a little bit too much like their SkyQuest. I think I was maybe expecting, a different flair, a different flavor from Monta, not so much of the SkyQuest language. But I mean, like I said to you earlier today, offline, off the show, of course, in a vacuum, I think it's a great looking watch. So what are your first thoughts?
Kind of echoing that sentiment. I think it is a beautiful watch. It's something that looks very familiar to, a couple of mine, but I like I said, I love the red lettering on it. in a vacuum. Yeah, I trying to think of anything different that you said, but honestly, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. The one thing I think leaves lacking for me, and hopefully they'll do this in the coming, months, next year, whatever, is different color iterations of this
Yeah.
watch. If they had this watch in an all blue kind of, a variant of like what you would expect the Rolex, the Smurf to be,
Hmm.
but stainless steel, obviously not white gold.
Yeah.
But if they had that, I mean, that would really catch my attention. I think I would probably buy that watch. Maybe it in all green. I'm not sure if they mentioned it in our episode. I don't remember, but I was fairly surprised when they just released the black. And I
Yeah.
thought, hey, the initial releases, I understood what they were doing, and I was thinking maybe when they full on released in the 30th, I believe, of June, that they would say, hey, here are the few color options you have: blue, green, whatever. Those are normally blue, green, black are the big three. But I was kind of surprised that it just stuck with black. So maybe you'll see this coming up in a few months. Maybe not. We'll have to talk to those guys and see what their thoughts on that is. But other than that, I think it really is a good watch. It looks pretty. Has
Yeah.
everything you would expect from Manta. The loom, the movement, everything's good behind it. Just maybe different color iterations down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. We'd love to see like an all blue, green dial, something,
Hmm.
maybe a white dial would be,
Yeah,
I mean, think of that watch with the white dial with the red lettering, but the black bezel.
would be different.
I
Yeah,
think that'd look really slick. Yeah. Something that will stand them apart a little bit. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they take that. Um, yeah, and also new releases from Omega in
yeah.
their Seamaster Professional lineup. So that's Aquaterra, S&P 300, of course. Yeah, new summer blue. What first thoughts on that? It's kind of a baby, kind of a light faded. The
Yeah,
how do
it's
they say that
is
word? The degradé.
degradate. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's very beautiful. Honestly, I love them. This is probably one of my favorite releases. I like this much better than just the original S&P 300 or Aquaterra, whatever you have of there. It's almost like we always talk about a sunburst dial. Very
yeah,
light in the center, and as you go out, it gets darker. I saw one of their representatives say that this kind of just represents as you go deeper into the ocean, the water around you gets darker, is kind of why they
yeah,
chose that. And it's very cool. I think the Aquaterra to me is just very slick. It's almost a baby blue dial, and the leather or rubber strap that they have that we always talk about, that mesh rubber strap, is also matching the dial. It matches the
yeah.
center of the dial. So very cool. To me, I don't know if you really see this, but a lot of the Aquaterras, they're 38, especially 38 millimeter, their new one, but also their 41, almost gives off Grand Seiko type vibes when it's getting to the dial.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Yeah, I think it's especially the Aquaterra. I'm looking at it right now, and it's getting dressier, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that lighter, that softer blue. It's taking away like the sportiness of it,
Oh yeah.
and it's giving it, very kind of well, not I shouldn't say very dressy because it doesn't look like a dress watch. It still is a nice sporty kind of look, but yeah, it plays a little bit more in kind of both lanes.
Yeah,
I can definitely see
and
that.
same thing with the globe or their world timer that they released has the same
Oh
thing.
yeah,
And it has obviously the same dial with the globe in the center. It's very very cool.
yeah,
That's even more dressy. I mean, they released it for all their Seamaster collection, so every watch has this, and you can really play with what you want. I think their 38 millimeters one that a lot of people are looking at. It's almost like it could be a girl's watch as well with 38. A lot of women I'm seeing pictured in it and are wearing it around. It looks great even as a woman's watch, not too far off the cuff of what they do regularly, but
yeah.
a good little distinction there.
But
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah,
in all, I think again, Omega did great. They normally always do. They're one of the few brands that do not miss on really anything they
hmm,
put out.
yeah,
So, they're this anniversary edition for all their Seamasters are fantastic. So definitely, if you haven't seen one, look on our Instagram page. I know we'll be posting a lot of them because I think me and Brett both love them. Obviously, they're on, and so look out
yeah,
for that and see what you like.
yeah. Absolutely. Well, guys, again, thanks for joining us today, and we are going to jump into some Cartier history in just a second. Real quick, just want to remind everyone to give us a follow on social media at Strap and Link. And then also our new YouTube channel. We just started this up about a week or two ago, right as we were kind of meeting with Miguel from SoCal Watch Reviews. And so our first video content that we put up was just kind of like a short, 7-8 minute clip. So I think that we're just going to do that. We'll kind of piece, 2 or 3 things together for maybe like, 7, 10, 12 minutes worth of content there for you. There is also audio only. There's like full length audio only episodes. So definitely go check out the YouTube channel, also at Strap and Link. And then also want to remind everyone that the giveaway that we are doing is still running. So quick reminder, this is for a single watch box, single watch winder. So box/winder. We are running that until July the 15th. So you have until this Friday before that closes. We were initially doing it to 350 followers. We're just kind of slowly trickled there. We're at like 310, 315 right now. So we're just going to cut that off on July the 15th instead. Or if we get a huge spike up to 350, we will cut that off. So again, follow us on Instagram. That reel is still pinned at the very top left of the profile. So go ahead and like it, comment, tag one friend, give us a follow, and you'll be entered to win. And then also just one last reminder to just keep an eye out on Instagram to just see just kind of like general questions that we want to throw out to the show and just kind of ask listeners, also give you a chance to send some questions our way so that we can answer that live on the show. And then finally, we will, from time to time, we will just kind of throw a poll out there of like, hey, what brand do you want to see us cover next? So like, for example, Cartier, that's how we landed on this. We threw out, I think, Seiko, Rado, Rolex, and Cartier won by a landslide. So definitely give us a follow. Keep an eye out. Lots of cool things going on over there. We will make it worth your while for sure. And with that, let's go ahead and jump into some Cartier. We'll go ahead and kick this episode off about what it's all about. So I'll kick us off here, and we're going to go back to 1847 in Paris, France. Louis Francois Cartier founded the company, of course, after taking over what was effectively at that time his boss's watch. I believe is a watch. It might have been a jewelry workshop, but again, effectively taking over his boss's workshop. In 1874, his son Alfred Cartier took over the company, but ultimately, and in reality, his sons Louis Pierre and Jacques established the brand name worldwide. Cartier does have a long history of sales to royalty as well, and I thought this was quite interesting. I wanted to make sure that we got this into the episode. King Edward the 12th, is that 12? V22? Roman numerals? I'm terrible at Roman numerals.
No, that's the 7th.
That's the 7th.
You want to cut that out? Yeah.
Wait, what is? Oh, X is 10. Okay,
X
all
is
right.
10.
Okay, so King Edward the 7th. I was like the 12th. That does not sound right. King Edward the 7th referred to Cartier as the jeweler of king and the king of jewelers. That's a pretty awesome statement.
At least it wasn't King Edward the 8th, because wasn't that the crazy one, the super fat one?
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't
need
know.
to brush up on my English history.
I used to be good about that history, but maybe not. But I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay. So this is predecessor to that.
Yeah.
Calls Cartier the jeweler of kings and the king of jewelers. For his coronation in 1902, Edward VII actually issued a royal warrant to Cartier in 1904. I did some research on this. Royal warrants are basically a document that the king or queen or prominent figure at that time, they can issue these warrants to these companies, and it basically is just a think of it like a certificate of authenticity. So the king or queen, whomever, is giving that certificate to the brand, in this case Cartier, that says, hey, we acknowledge that you have given jewelry to us and that you are a jeweler for us. In turn, it gives the companies such as Cartier the right to sort of market that. They can kind of say like, hey, come check out our new Cartier tank. We have royal warrants or whatever. So kind of an interesting little marketing thing from way back in the day. And again, like we talked about earlier in the episode, I think it's one of the bits about Cartier that stands apart from other watch-only companies, that this is a part of their history and this is part of their marketing. So quite different, quite interesting.
In 1903, they designed their first men's wristwatch. His friend Alberto Santos-Dumont inspired the watch, and this is how the Santos name actually came to be. Alberto complained about having a pocket watch while flying, so Cartier designed the Santos to be flat and square and making it easier to read for his friend. You can also make the case now, because of this, that the Santos was actually the first pilot's watch ever, which is kind of crazy to say aloud if you haven't heard that before. Cartier is also credited with the first deployment class, which they put onto the Santos in 1911. So we're seeing some legit watchmaking even in the early 1900s from this jewelry company that was really known for just that at the time.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think doing the research, I was pleasantly surprised at the horological benchmarks that they made as a jewelry company. So
Yeah.
pretty cool. Just 4 years later, in 1907, after developing the first men's wristwatch, Cartier actually began a partnership with Edmond Jaeger of JLC. Jaeger agreed to be the exclusive supplier of movements for Cartier watches, although from my research, what I found, they also use movements by Vacheron, Audemars Piguet, and even Movado. So I'm not sure how that exclusive partnership worked out, but interesting nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
By this time, the brand was also gaining momentum and widespread popularity. They, by this time, had opened boutiques in London, New York City, and St. Petersburg in the same year, again in 1907. I think it's also worth mentioning that by this point, mostly anyone associated with the Cartier family business had gone off to those branch cities to effectively act as the CEO of those respective branches. So kind of interesting. They all sort of split off, and one person took London, one person took New York, and they were sort of operating as like separate business entities. And then in 1917, Cartier debuted the original Cartier tank. This was designed by Louis Cartier. Supposedly, the tank was actually designed by literal tanks on the Western Front of World War One. These were like tanks built and designed by the French company Renault. And Louis gifted one of the first 6 models to John Pershing, who led American forces in Europe at that time. So pretty cool. I don't really see it. I can sort of understand the reasoning behind it. The tanks are sort of bracketish and kind of tall and skinny. So I get the general
Square-ish.
yeah, I get the general design of like a rectangle and flipping it, right side up.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I don't see much resemblance. But nonetheless, some other notable tank models, such as the Americain, launched in 1989. And that was the first tank featuring a curved case. And the tank Anglaise, I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm sure someone's going to correct me if I'm not. The tank Anglaise in 2012, that also featured the crown inside of the bezel rather than traditionally sticking off of the side in a very fashionable way, as we have all sort of come to know, and I would say mostly love from Cartier.
Yeah.
One last thing I want to mention, another really awesome quote. Andy Warhol, famous painter, of course, famously once said, "I don't wear a tank to tell the time. Actually, I've never even wound it. I wear a tank because it's the watch to wear." What a cool statement from Andy Warhol. He was huge back then. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah. And then by the 1920s, the brand had become so successful that other companies started to create imitations of their Cartier watches. In response, Cartier began adding reference numbers to their watches at this time. In 1926, we see creation of the baguette watch, and the Cartier jewelry in its red box actually appear on Broadway stages, one being the Nana Lou's play Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
Should see
Following
that
in
play.
Yeah, oh yeah. Following that, in 1964, the family actually sold the business to an investment group based out of Paris. So then that kind of skips us forward to 2004, where Cartier launched the Santos 100 collection to commemorate the 100th year anniversary of the Santos. The Santos 100 large measured actually at 51 meters tall and 41 millimeters, that'd be a little big, millimeters wide, and 10.3 millimeters thick. Meanwhile, the Santos 100 medium is a square casing that measures 35.6 millimeters. Both came in both automatic ETA movements. In 2018, Cartier updated the Santos again. After little to no changes for many of those years, they had debuted a collection of 13 watches in 2 sizes, again calling them the medium and the large, which is kind of a pattern I've noticed with them. They always just
Yeah.
very simple, very straight to the
It's
point,
kind of what
medium,
they have
large.
today still.
Yeah, exactly. And the 2018 Santos relies more on design cues from earlier models while remaining a modern wristwatch. Notably, the lugs and the case are more curved, as most popular watches are today. This invokes the shape of an earlier Santos Galbe model.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, yeah. There's a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the last bit of history, I thought I'd throw it in. because again, it's not just a watch brand solely, but it's a pretty
Mm-hmm.
large, pretty world renowned jewelry company as well. Forbes ranked Cartier on its most valuable brands list, the 56th most valuable brand in 2020, brand value of 12.2 billion.
Yeah.
I didn't actually research this against like Rolex or Patek to give like
Yeah.
a reference base of where that might stack up against, but nonetheless, pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so David's going to kick us off with his first watch. Before we do that, though, I think worth mentioning or pointing out, we're only going to do basically two watches. We're going to do two versions of the
Mm-hmm.
same watch, David and I, because Cartier has a lot of watches, a lot of variations, but in terms of actual collections, and I think collections for watch collectors, at least that's how I sort of interpret it and see it, pretty
Mm-hmm.
slim. I don't know if you
Yeah.
have a different opinion on that. I know we sort of talked about it a little bit when prepping for this.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
it's like the Tank and the Santos are really the two main collections. There are some women's lines, and not being misogynist and taken away from that, but we know that most folks that listen to our show are men, and I think most people that listen are listening from like a collector perspective. So we didn't want to pull out watches that might not be relevant. So I don't know
yeah.
if you had a take on that, but that was kind of my thought on it.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, most of I'm going to talk about the tank, just two versions of the tank. Out to me, they're most simple and elegant, just normal versions that most people, when you think of a Cartier tank, you think of one of these two versions. I'm not going to talk about the crazy skeletal ones that are
Yeah.
$69,000 or something crazy. But the first one I'm going to talk about is the tank must, and that's when I first saw a Cartier tank, this is the watch I saw. And honestly, it is, it's a men's watch, but a lot of women wear this watch, especially.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Santos is more solely a man's watch just because of how wide it is. And to me, I always think more Cartier tanks are for women and guys with smaller wrists that don't want something bulky, but honestly, tanks are 50-50 when it comes to if a woman's going to wear it or a man.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of people don't like that rectangle, very skinny rectangle look that a tank would bring. But that being said, the Cartier tank must, the majority of them are around 33.7 millimeters by 25.5 millimeters wide, with a thickness of 6.6. So again, you can, if you know anything about your watches, you have 25 millimeters is about half the size of a normal 40 millimeter case that
Yeah.
you would see on an older Rolex or whatever it is. There is an extra large version that we'll talk about a little bit later, but the water resistance is going to be 30 meters again, like most of these dress watches. A lot of these tanks, especially the must, which I think is why, if there is any hate about a tank, it's normally on the must, is that they are quartz movements.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of hate that, and that's something I figured out when I was originally looking for one of these watches, or thinking about this. Is I'm like, I'm definitely not buying a Cartier that's a quartz, but again, you're saving money. You're talking around 3,500, for a man's. There's some smaller ones that are more lady size, that's around 2,000, but the majority around 3,500 to 6K, depending. But that 3,500 is mostly going to touch at a quartz movement. Again, we can talk about that. Do you want to spend that much for a quartz movement? But again, that'll be later in
Yeah.
the episode. There are, to me, something I always found out before researching this episode, but I wanted to point out, Cartier does have more quartz movements than I expected them to have. And I guess maybe that is a lot of the fashion brands and it might be the Movado movement you were talking about. A lot of the fashion brands are quartz, like Gucci and Versace, whatever, those are quartz. And maybe it's just a little bit lingering over from that. They are a fashion brand to an extent, and so they want a little bit cheaper watches to present. Another thing on the tank that I think is a drawback is going to be all of them that I saw. Maybe not. I didn't really look at those super expensive ones, but I believe it's the same thing. Most of these are sub 2 day power reserve. I
Yeah.
know the tank must is 42 hours. I believe the other one's a little bit less, but we'll let you know when we get there. But I mean, you're talking 42 hours for $6,000 watch. That will get annoying. I promise you. That means you have to wear your watch every day, pretty much. If you go a weekend without it, it'll be gone. And Most of these with the Tank Must, again, they're more of a simple look, which is kind of what I like about them. They're stainless steel. They have a plethora of strap options, but most of the dial is very simple. If you do the extra large, you actually can step up to an automatic. It's going to be a little bit more money, like I said, but the extra large is a little bit bigger. I think you're talking around a 41 by 33 and a half millimeter size. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's correct. Again, but you have automatic and you also have a date window, which is something that I know a lot of guys like. So again, your extra large could be more of what the men are looking for in this, and then the original could be more of a ladies' watch on this as well. Again, with the blue crown, blue hands, the extra large actually it does have a second hand, which is nice, where the original Tank Must does not. So, those are a few differences, but they're both, like I said, very simple: white, silver, black Roman numerals with blue dial hands. They're just very, when you think of Cartier, this is what you think.
All right. We're back. Just had a power outage. I guess it's storming in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Doing okay over there?
Times. Oh yeah, making it.
He's
Dang
got
house.
I've
been here a month.
Snacks.
I've been here a month, and I've been through like 3 lightning storms.
Jeez, they're so relaxing. God. Like when you have like like a nice
nothing to do.
But yeah. But in here trying to rely strictly on the Wi-Fi.
Continue.
Well, no. So yeah. So what I was saying, I you might have heard some of it, but it got cut off. I was just saying that I think the Tank is, or this model specifically, the Tank Must is like, it's got to be like one of the perfect gifts for like a wife or a girlfriend, like like an anniversary, because like think of like 5-10 year whatever, you're like 2K for a women's.
Oh, yeah.
They don't care about the movement. They don't care that it's quartz. It's Cartier. It's one of, if not the most recognizable jewelry brands in the world, behind or right alongside Tiffany and Harry Winston and David Yurman and whomever else sits in that category.
As long as they're not a part of the Atlanta Watch Society.
Yes. Yes. Our members do care about the movement.
You better hope you're not married to one of them. If you're not, then you're good.
Yes. If you're not, then you can get away with a cost savings. Boom. We just saved you $1,500 at least. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what I think about the Tank Must, is that, like you said, it's like basically the most iconic line, or one of the most iconic watches from Cartier. And you can get into it very, very, affordably.
Yeah.
It has the signature crown, which I'll talk about on one of my watches in just a moment. So yeah, I think it's a perfect watch for that type of occasion.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited to hear about the Santos-Dumont, because this is actually my personal favorite. Is this brand? You see a lot of famous, actors, singers, Luke Combs, people like that will be wearing these around, and I always think they look amazing. So
yeah, it's interesting. There's a wide variety of people that can pull off these watches, but I think it speaks, maybe to the testament. Maybe people are just doing what they shouldn't be doing, wearing it like in the wrong setting, and it still works because they're famous. And Lady Gaga can wear a meat dress to the whatever award show that she went to, wearing a meat dress, and it worked. But nonetheless, you do see them in a variety, and it works. So the Santos-Dumont is the first watch that I'm going to cover. This one a little bit easier to describe in terms of like case shape and size. So square case here, square bezel, 35.1 millimeters wide for the large model. So 35.1 millimeters wide, a little bit easier frame of reference. 33.9 millimeter wide for the small model. Case thickness is 8.83 millimeter, and I don't think that changes from large to small model. Got to fit that movement in there basically the same way. Water resistance on this one is bumped up to 100 meters, roughly 300 feet. So we are moving up into kind of a watch that you can wear in more sporty environments. You could wear this maybe to the pool or to like a beach bar, and you're not entirely worried about getting it splashed. I have a 30 millimeter water resistance watch that sits much more on the dress side, and it's one of the worst things about it. Low power reserve and low water resistance. Those are two things that, as a watch collector, when you rotate watches on a weekly basis, sometimes even a daily basis, it's just, those are two of those things that are stick out pain points. So Santos-Dumont, the caliber movement sitting in this bad boy, most of them are going to have the Cartier caliber 1847 MC. Some will have the Cartier 430 MC, which is substantially less impressive. both from like a beats per hour, power reserve, um, all those metrics. But in the typical movement, the 1847, we're going to have 28,800 vibrations per hour and a 42-hour power reserve. I also have a watch with a 42-hour power reserve separate from the 30-meter water resistance watch that I just mentioned. That also sucks. It's one of those watches where you want to wear it a couple of days in a row or have it on a winder. Otherwise, you're just going to constantly be setting it.
Oh yeah.
I guess on the plus side, the Dumont, at least many of the models, they don't have a date window. So if you do have a 42-hour power reserve and no date window, it's
Yeah.
not that big of a deal. But yeah, so I'll just leave it at that. Kind of variance in cost here, really going to be looking anywhere from like 6,200 to 7,100. As far as I can tell, there's not really a large variation in cost. The collections do get a little bit muddy when you go Santos-Dumont and then the Santos de Cartier, or just the typical Cartier Santos.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit muddied there, but again, from what I could tell on their website, doing filtering and searching and sorting, 62 to 7,100 for the steel automatic models. Now there are quartz models in both the Santos-Dumont and the Santos de Cartier. Was not looking at those for the purposes of this discussion, but of course, as you can imagine, they will be a little bit cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
David, to your point earlier, like I don't like to consider paying so much for a quartz movement. It's just not something I would want to consider doing. Again, if I'm gifting it to someone that I know has no care in the world, that's fine. But for me personally, I don't want to justify paying like $4,500 or even $3,000. We talked about this on the Grand Seiko episode too. So
that tick gives you the ick.
It probably would. I haven't worn a quartz in a long time, but it probably would,
Yeah.
unless it's a true tool watch, like give me a G-Shock or something like that. But I don't even think most G-Shocks don't even have secondhand. So
yeah.
So a couple of details about the Santos-Dumont. Between the two models, the Santos de Cartier and the Santos-Dumont, this is more of the dressier model. This is the one that looks, at least in my opinion, a little bit more like jewelry, or like a jeweler's watch than a watch that was made by a jewelry company, if that makes any kind of sense. The crown on this one is that sort of distinctive crown that Cartier are known for, that features the large, it's a synthetic blue spinel, I believe is how you pronounce that. A spinel is a gemstone. I thought it was going to be like a sapphire or, like something like that, but it's actually a blue spinel is at the tip of that crown. Talked to one of my buddies in Mexico about this. He really loves Cartier, but he hates those crowns. I love it. I think it's really cool.
It makes them stand apart.
Yeah. It's very distinctive. It's very unique. Again, it's just one of those things. Like Cartier, they did a couple things. They did square watches, they did rectangular watches, and they did, to me, that crown. So I love it. Like if and when I buy, and I will buy one of these at some point before I'm dead, I will have one of those crowns. I love it. Yeah. This is the more compact case design as well, compared to the Santos de Cartier, and it's also a little bit thinner. So you are getting some more of that, fit right up under the cuff with this model. It's also worth noting that this is the model that kind of the lugs are a little bit longer. And the reason that I bring that up is because this actually makes it look a little bit more dressy. The reason that it does that is because when the lugs are longer, it sort of like elongates the watch a little bit. And I can't really explain that in like practical terms, but it just does this thing. If and when you ever look at them side by side, if you have them in hand or just on pictures, you can sort of, tell what I'm saying just by looking at kind of the lugs. And then you see them elongated on a strap. You're like, okay, it separates them. So yeah, but it's my personal favorite out of the Cartier lineup, specifically silver dial with the blue croc strap, the blue alligator strap, whichever one of the two. I forget which one that they use. This one's kind of paying homage to some of the 1916 models. Again, slimmer case profile with the longer lugs. We just talked about that. And the distinctive blue crown, which we also talked about. All of that, again, going back to the original design. I do think I lean more towards this square than the rectangle shape. That's why I wanted the Santos.
Yeah.
And I do hear that it's more comfortable. than the rectangle, which I could see that.
Yeah,
Have you ever worn one of these though?
I've never worn a, Cartier. I've worn a Longines Dolce Vita.
Okay.
I agree when when I was originally looking for a lot of these, and I've worn JLC Reversos, and it's kind of the same thing. Those are a little bit bigger than the Dolce Vita that I wore, but it's definitely different. Is Yeah, I don't know if I love the way it fits and wears
Okay.
any of them. But I think the square definitely I would lean more towards that. But the rectangle to me just still, which I mean, I've never actually worn one on a daily basis, for a couple days in a row. I've only worn, one at a AD or something, but it's
Yeah.
definitely different and kind of throws me off. But again, I think it's just something you have to get used to because I want a rectangle watch at some point. Just don't know, when or what brand that will be just yet.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, but so stepping kind of over to the last one I want to talk about is the another tank, the tank Louis, and this is kind of my favorite of the tanks that I've seen. It's pretty much the tank must, but with gold casing. So you're
Hmm.
talking a little bit more money. They make this actually in a smaller version, a 29.5 millimeter by 22 millimeter, or you can go back up to the 33.7 millimeter by 25.5 millimeter, depending on what you want. So it's, a little more elegant. You know how a lot of the times your dressier watches are going to be a little bit smaller. I think 29.5 by 22 is too small for me. So I would definitely have to do the slightly bigger one. I believe they do have an extra large version again, which would be something I would kind of lean more towards because I just like slightly bigger on my wrist. I'm not a huge fan. I know Brett likes a little bit smaller dials, bezel length, but I don't like going really under a 40. I have a Black Bay 58 that's a 39, and that's really definitely my floor. But if it's under a 40, I don't really love it. When it's just talking about a round watch. So needless to say, this would be kind of smaller than my liking. But again, your case thickness is still going to be between 6 and 8 millimeters, depending on the size you get.
It's very thin.
Yep. 30 meters of water resistance. You can have a quartz movement again, or this actually offers their in-house manual winding movement, the 1917 MC. So there are some manual windings. Again, another thing that's not my favorite movement wise, just when it comes to having to wind that. Same thing with a Speedy and other watches like that. It's not
Yeah.
just these guys. But again, the real downfall of this watch is going to be your 38-hour power reserve, which is even less than the 42, obviously. So it would be something you have to get used to. But I think this is more meant for a watch. This is going to be your daily wear to the office, is what I think of the
Yeah.
tanks. And it's really any of the tanks, the Must or the Louis. You're talking. This is when you watch Suits or something. This is what one of the characters is wearing every day. A tank is a very just prominent, nice daily wear, and I think that's why a lot of the times these 38-hour power reserves really don't matter. But because you're getting an 18 karat gold case, you're going to be talking anywhere from 10 to 20,000 normally on the pricing of this watch. Again, this is still is, even all the the little jabs I gave it there, just technically wise, this still is my favorite looking tank look wise.
Okay.
I think is very. I mean, they have one. You can see it on their website, and I'm sure we'll post one. But it's the gold casing with the cream dial, little bit off white dial, and it's on a brown croc strap. That's just phenomenal. I love it. I
Yeah.
love that brown croc strap on a rectangle watch, and I think no matter which one I get, that's going to be the strap I'm going to have on mine. And kind of what cemented that, and probably I think it did for you too, Brett. I know it did for one of our friends, but is seeing a watch. I think it was actually a Frank Mueller, but on
Mm.
season one of
Yeah. White Lotus.
White Lotus, and he had it on. And I was like, God, that's just he was a dick in the show, but I was like, that's a beautiful
Yeah.
watch. And so
But
seeing
he's wearing like shorts and flip flops every day, and it
all the
works.
time, yeah, and it works, and that's what I like. The brown strap is dressy, but it's also very like summery, sporty, nice khaki shorts and a beachy shirt. You're talking about the beach, this can be worn every dang day to the beach.
Yeah.
Anything, any vacation, any White Lotus type vacation you're taking is perfect to wear around the resort.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great watch. Just look wise again, that's what a lot of these people, us people, are really shooting for anyway. Especially even when you're collecting and you have so many other watches, you might say, I just like the look of this and I want this. Again, you don't have to get every watch has to
Yeah.
perfectly check all your movement things. If you already have 5 other ones that do, hey, get a watch that you just like the look of and you want to wear out one night. or is
Right.
more of a summer watch. I mean, I definitely have summer watch. I know we do stuff with straps on the summer versus winter. We take some off, and you can do the same thing. This could be a summer watch with that brown cross strap is great. They also do it in gray and other different colors, black. But the brown is beautiful. We'll definitely post that up on our social media for you guys to see.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing I've learned doing this podcast is that aside from like, we talked about the water resistance and the power reserve being kind of two of the, like, if you're going to fall short in some spec, those are the two that really suck because they're kind of practical specs, It's not practical, like whatever the watch is beating at. It's not practical, like spring drive versus manual wind, it doesn't matter, right? At some point, obviously you're going to lose a couple seconds, right? But we're talking about like, if I get my hand wet, is the watch going to mess up potentially, or is it just not going to be working the next day or 2 days from now? But aside from those two factors, one thing I've learned is that like you can wear any watch in any circumstance 90% of the time.
Oh yeah.
Just having like the confidence and the appreciation for the watch, you can pull it off. Like anyone, guys, girls, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can wear like seen women rocking Rolex Submariners.
I've seen them wearing the Batman. They're huge, hanging off the wrist. But
seen guys wearing like Rolex and like deep seas and sea dwellers as dailies. Seen that Cartier tanks, Frank Mueller's at the beach in a t-shirt and shorts. Like, you got the confidence and, in my mind, the appreciation for the watch and what it represents and all that good stuff. Then you can rock it. You can rock it. Don't question that. I see a lot of that stuff like on Reddit too. It always kind of bugs me. People are like, "Oh, can I pull this off?" Yada yada. It's like, if you like it, you can pull it off.
You can pull off
I promise
any watch. Any watch can be pulled off if you, like you said, you're confident, not commenting about it all the time.
Yeah,
because there are girls that I see. I'm on the watch Rolex sell trading TikTok. I always watch like negotiations on that. I don't know if you do any,
okay.
but a lot of the girls that this guy is always buying watches from, APs, whatever it is. She's got a big Batman hanging off her wrist, but she rocks it and nobody says anything, and it looks great on her. So it really just depends on how you rep it. One thing I wanted to bring up, I don't know how true this is, but it just might be something. But I was watching somewhere, I forgot who said it. I wish I would have sent you the video. He was talking about water resistance. He was like, 30 meters doesn't mean 30 meters, obviously. He's like, if like this Grand Seiko, I believe it's 30 meters. He's like, that 30 meters for this watch means they are good with you washing your hands while wearing the watch. It won't do nothing wrong. He's like, it's not until really you get 100 meters that they're even like saying it would be safe to put it in the water, fully submerge it. And even at 100 meters, it's like, don't submerge it for long. He's like, it takes up to about 200 meters before you can fully swim in your watch. And they will pretty much guarantee in like a pool setting or a bay, ocean. And this guy was talking about it. Again, I don't know how true that is. I could be completely wrong. But that I just thought it was very interesting where, everybody's like, 30 meters, and 30 meters means you don't have to worry about your watch getting wet and messing up on your day-to-day basis, but you better not put it in the water.
But don't swim 30 meters.
It's like you can get rain on it. You can wash your hands. None of that's going to be a problem with it, but for the love of God, don't get in the pool with it.
Well, so Mike from Monto was he was kind of talking about that with us too. Saying that it's not, like what you just said is exactly right. 30 meters does not mean swim 30 meters deep with your Cartier tank. And I don't know the science behind it, or like the math behind it. By the way, I think that thunderstorm's rolling over to Atlanta now.
Yeah. It's quit raining here.
Yeah. But Michael rather from Monza was talking about like atmospheric pressure, and fittingly so, RIP to the Titan submersible. But atmospheric pressure at certain depths will implode objects like a submersible or a watch or a human, right? So the watches are made to withstand atmospheric pressure.
It's not about the water,
not the depth. Yeah. So that's something for us to cover in the future, because I find that pretty fascinating. Like, I don't know, like if you had a swimming pool that was 30 meters deep and you scuba dove down to the bottom of it, I don't know if that's the same as 30 meters deep in the ocean. I don't know if that is the same atmospheric pressure as a lake, a swamp, an ocean, a pool.
I
don't
think there's a
know.
little difference between salt and fresh water, but it's pretty much the same just
Okay.
because of the pressure of the water
There's just
itself.
okay. So it's just like
Yeah.
okay. So there's just pressure around in the water. Okay. There's some, there's like a chemist or
No.
like a
Laughing at us
physicist.
right now. It's so simple.
Yeah, these idiots.
but
Um,
but yeah, I mean, it's simple, it's different.
yeah,
It's that's really the reason behind it. Don't sit there and think 30 meters is what I can just swim on this
yeah,
pool.
yeah.
I can swim for.
And
And
then I
so
think it
if
goes
you have
the
a
other
30
way.
meter watch, don't go underwater too long, needless to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. And the last thing I was going to say about that, I was going to say I think it does work the other way too because our Grand Seikos are both 30 meters, and
Mm-hmm.
I have like bad habits about like if I'm washing my hands, like sometimes I'll take it off. Like usually I don't take it off, but
Yeah.
sometimes I will take it off.
Yeah.
Like I just had some sod put down, so I've got to like run a sprinkler out in the front yard, and like when it, I'm checking it, turn it off, turn it on, whatever, and get a little bit wet. I'm always like, tuck the watch behind my back or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, yeah, to David's point, you don't have to like worry about that. Like water's not magically gonna get inside of it, but yeah, I mean, it's be cognizant of that. It's just not mean.
Yeah,
Just go
you could
jump
go
in or
even 10
whatever.
meters. You can't go 5 meters. It's saying just
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
it
But I
wet on your
mean,
day to day. It's like what was I forgot what they always used to say, like phone water resistance, like old phones. Now iPhones can go underwater for
yeah.
a day and be fine. But like the old ones, I was always like, yeah, it's it's your first waterproof iPhone or water
Right.
resistance. And it was never proof. It was water resistance. You can get it rained on. I remember thinking that as a kid, like,
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about getting my phone wet now. And it's kind of the same thing. You don't have to worry about that on your day to day basis with your watch, but don't chunk your watch to the bottom of your pool and swim down and get in.
Well, and think about the literal term water resistance. It's not like you just said, it's not waterproofness, it's water
Mm-hmm.
resistance. It's resisting the pressure, it's resisting that atmospheric pressure. It's not proofed against. Of course, that's also legal in marketing, right? If it's
So they don't
proofed,
cover their butt.
exactly. But yeah, I mean, think about that in the literal sense. So
Yeah. Anyway, so that being
cool.
said, tell me about what is the last one? The Cartier?
The Santos de Cartier. Yeah,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
gonna wrap it up here. The Santos de Cartier. So, again, square watch, a little bit easier to explain and describe here. It's also a little bit larger than the Santos-Dumont. The steel models here, I believe, capping off at 38.9 millimeter width. That's the largest model. Case thickness a little bit thicker, 9.38, although still very, very thin. Water resistance is 100 meters here, so we've got that increase over the Tank and over the Santos-Dumont, right? Santos-Dumont.
Yes.
Or wait, no, sorry, Santos-Dumont also 100 meters, but over the Tank, yes, increase in water resistance. Again, it's the more sporty, right? Everyone can look at these two watches, a Santos and a Tank, no matter which variation. You can tell the Santos is the more sporty. This one rocks the Cartier 1847 caliber as well. So again, 28,800 vibration or beats per hour and 42 hours on the power reserve. The variation in cost on this one is a little bit, it ranges a little bit more versus the Santos-Dumont from 7K to 15K. And that really depends on like your steel and gold combinations. Now it does go all the way up to like $45,000 plus for models that are diamonds or models with diamonds, rather, skeleton dials, precious material. So I'm just talking about steel and gold combination. So not full gold, but steel, all steel, and then steel plus gold combos, 7 to 15K. So, cost benefit analysis on these watches, like just first impressions, like worth it or not, in a word.
Yeah. I mean, I think they are for what they're known. I wouldn't pay the higher end of that, but 7 to 10, I'd all day pay. I think for something like
So
this.
7K worth
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. I would agree. I think you're getting enough. Everyone knows Cartier. Its unique factor to me, I think, is maybe the most valuable piece of it, potentially. It's just that no other watch pulls this off the way that Cartier does with either model, the Tank or the Santos. So
yeah,
also agree. Worth it. The Santos de Cartier is the boxier design of the two Santos, again compared to the Santos-Dumont.
Yeah.
This one has a little bit more of like a practical aspect than the Santos-Dumont. The Dumont being a little bit more elegant, a little dressier. I think this one is a little bit more practical. Again, it is a little bigger. It's a little bit thicker, and it's a little bit sportier. I think the way that it comes from Cartier. A lot of these will have the option of bracelet or straps.
Mm-hmm.
My 2 cents, as someone that does not own one of these watches, but still my 2 cents, get it with the bracelet because it looks pretty cool and you can rock that sporty all day long, no matter what the setting is. Out to dinner, out to lunch, out to a beach bar. And there's a million strap options on the aftermarket. Of course, you can go with a Cartier strap, but a lot of strap options. And trust me, we follow a lot of Instagram accounts. We follow a lot of strap accounts. So if you're interested in doing some promo work, hit us up.
Mm-hmm.
But these watches, they pair so great. They pair phenomenally with straps. Think suede and crocodile. Those two materials specifically. It's Cartier. It's a jewelry company. It's a very classy looking watch. You throw a suede strap or a leather strap in nearly any color, as long as you're not going like blue dial with green strap or yellow, as long as you're not mixing randomly weird colors, it's gonna work.
Yeah, I my 2 cents is for the Santos. I would, like you said, 100% agree. I would go with the bracelet, and with the Tank, I would go with a strap. That's my thought. I was like, I don't love the strap look on the square watch of the Santos. I think the bracelet look looks 1,000 times better, and I think the smaller rectangle look is a little bit dressier, needless to say. And I think the strap does look, even though the Tank Must is very good looking with the bracelet, I still think that the croc strap on a Tank looks better. So I kind of agree. If you're going Santos, 100%, I'd be going bracelet, and then maybe dabble for $100 strap, a couple $100 strap.
You can get a nice $50, $80, $100 strap to match. Yeah, you don't have to go $400 custom made to make this to have this thing wear in two different settings. Because then you can take your Santos, put an $80 leather strap on it, and boom, now that's your dress watch for the dinner party. And then put it back on the bracelet. Now you can wear it 5 days a week to the office, even if you wear jeans and a t-shirt to work every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So kind of shifting gears here. We had a question.
Wait, one more thing I was gonna say. We jumped ahead. We talked about the bracelet and the versatility there, which is amazing. I will say there's an interesting model. There's a model that comes with a PVD bezel that basically the bezel is matched to the dial. Very unique. Not for me. But I did think that was interesting. I don't see those a lot on Instagram, which is probably where most of us consume like our watch content, usually not on Twitter or Reddit. I would imagine YouTube as well, obviously. But I never seen that. So I wanted to throw that out there. If anyone's like super, super interested in looking at a Santos, they do have this, just look up like PVD or PVD bezel Santos and it should come up. And then lastly, these watches, the Santos, they do have a quick switch, is Cartier branded quick switch, easy adjust or easy removal bracelet and strap system. Please, everyone that's not listening to this podcast, like Tudor and Rolex, start making these, or drilled lugs. Not a lot of companies do drilled lugs. Grand Seiko do, so it's easy and that's nice because you got some really high polish. Maybe that's why they do it, to keep you from messing those lugs up.
Yeah.
But quick switch or drilled lugs, when it comes to straps, like, oh my God, such a relief. Such a relief.
Yeah. Well, I get the drilled lugs look. A lot of people don't like that on the side as much, especially, Rolex went away with that with their newer versions of the sub and all. But for tool wise and taking off the bracelet and the straps, it is very nice.
Yeah. Well, I told you, remember, because I took the Blackberry. Yeah. Well, I took both of our Blackberry 58 bracelets off. I think yours is still on the rubber strap, and I went to put the Tudor bracelet back on. I couldn't get it on. I had to take it to the AD I bought it from, and I was like, please put this back together. I couldn't get it in there. My spring bar tool probably sucks, but it's just annoying. And then you miss like 4 or 5 times before. If you're like me, I'm like, all right, I'm done scratching it.
Because you feel like you're scratching it.
Yeah, that's all I'm willing to mess the lugs up by trying to put a strap on. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
anyways,
yeah,
jumping
you wanted to
back.
jump into mailbag, right?
Yeah, so we got one question I thought was really good. We'll bring this one up this episode, and some a question really I have, and I was gonna present this in some way with Brett anyway. So he said, how do you think the Cartier collection compares to other rectangle type watches? He's talking about the Tank here,
Hmm.
such as the JLC Reverso or the Longines Dolce Vita. How do you think they compare? Which one, and when you play the game, which one would you rather have? Between the JLC, I take it you wouldn't want the Dolce Vita if you have all three for nothing. But would you
Yeah.
rather have a Reverso or a Cartier? And I mean, I get it.
Hmm.
Let's play pricing here, which makes it a lot tighter race. Because if you're saying, hey, I can have a Reverso with two dials,
Yeah.
you flip it and it's actually two watches in one, then obviously I think I would take that. But let's say it's the OG Reverso where it's you have the dial or you flip it around and it's the flat,
It's just
blank
flat.
case back. Yeah. So there's no dial on the back. So it's more the protector. What they actually made it for protecting with the Polo for the Reverso for the Polo matches. Or would you rather have a Cartier Tank Santos, something like that?
That's a great question. I would probably rather have a Cartier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love JLC Reversos. I'm a humongous fan of them, and also want to own one. Watches are like Pokemon to me. I want to own them all. But I think Cartier is. It's probably the more. I don't know. Maybe it's like more iconic. Maybe like that's like what I care about a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, JLC's got a lot of cool options, I think, when it comes to like versatility. And if I could just pick anything from the two, it probably would be that my favorite would end up being a Reverso.
Mm-hmm.
But like Cartier could do that if they wanted to as well. They could make really, really unique and really playful dials if they wanted to, but they don't.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be the Tank for me. I love the crown. Some people think it's quirky. Men specifically, if I had to guess, would think that that's a little quirky. It's a little like dead person's jewelry is a term that I like to use a lot.
Yeah.
And I do see some of that in Cartier, but it's also what makes it very iconic and all that good stuff. So yeah, for me, I'm gonna go Cartier, Cartier Tank over JLC Reverso if I had those two to pick.
Yeah, I was always a big Reverso guy, and I still am. But then after doing more of the research, I always, for some reason, was thinking Cartier men's watches to get anything that was worth anything, you're spending 10K at least.
Hmm.
And now seeing that you really can spend seven and get pretty much what I would want.
Yeah,
Um, then the Reverso itself, with like we said, with a flat back siding, the protected back siding, not the two dials, is I think around 7K as well. So I'm like, that's an even playing field.
yeah,
And I think I'm with you. I would rather, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'd rather go back with the Cartier and get,
yeah,
one of their watches for that price. Now, if you're talking, you can get anything you want at Reverso all day because I want two watches in one. It
yeah,
just
yeah,
makes
yeah.
most sense. The new one they came out with, I actually saw it when I was on vacation and earlier in June. It was, their new Reverso that had one side, it was on the brown croc strap. One side was like an off white. I think it was a GMT. And then the
Okay.
back side was like a black. You'll see it all over JLC. It's all over my Instagram and, marketing things. They obviously know I like it because I keep seeing it everywhere. That watch is about 13, 14 grand though. So I'm
Yeah,
like, okay,
yeah,
obviously, yeah, it's better watch, but you're paying double the price. But
yeah.
for the price point alone, yeah, I think Cartier, a Tank or a Santos would definitely be what I would go with as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great value proposition from Cartier. I think as long as you're outside of quartz movements, which again, everyone that listens to our show, they know probably both of our stances on that. It's too much to pay for a quartz movement. So you're getting automatic tank. Um, yeah, like outside of gold, yeah, if you're 6, 7, 8K for a Cartier tank, um, yeah, I think give me that. Like you said, JLC has got more options.
Yeah.
And I think also part of my reason for saying Cartier is that if I was buying a Cartier, there's a 50-50 shot it's going to be a tank. If I'm buying a JLC, 100% it's going to be a Reverso,
Yeah.
but not guaranteed that it's not going to be like a dual sided dial or some
Yeah.
of the newer ones. Like some have got skeleton on one side. Like,
Yeah.
they've
Yeah. Those are
got
very
really
cool.
cool options. So I think you're limited in Cartier, which for the purpose of this experiment makes me say Cartier,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that when I go to buy one, it's going to be a tank or it's going to be a Santos.
Yeah.
And JLC, they've just got too much to pick from. It's like Rolex. I would love a Rolex, but which one? I would love an Omega, but which one? I would love a
Yeah.
Cartier.
It's gonna
Probably
be
it's
one of
gonna
those
be
two.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
yeah, I get that. And I don't know. I like feeding off your sentiment there. I promise you, I will not be getting a reverso that has the
the flat.
blank back. Yeah, the flat
Yeah,
back. Why do you want to reverse it, but you can still only use one side?
yeah,
I don't play sports anymore. I don't, play polo. I'm not going to wear that reverso doing anything
yeah.
active. So why do I want to be able to choose the side. So when I get a reverso, and I love JLC's other watches, they have beautiful watches, but definitely your first one has to be a reverso, I feel like.
Oh
And,
yeah, yeah,
so, I at that point, if I'm sitting there saying, well, if I was just given the flat back or the Cartier, tank, I would take the tank, because I don't even really want the flat back anyways. I
hmm
wouldn't pay for it with my own money. So obviously I need to pick the tank or the Santos.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, and that's another good point because kind of talked about it at the top of the episode. Like the reason that we only did the Santos and only did the tank is because there's the Panther, there's the
mhm.
Ballon Blue. But yeah, if you're going Cartier, if I'm going personally for myself, then yeah, it's gonna be Santos or tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Maybe our next time around on this brand, we'll talk about other ones. But as always, we talk about the watches that we would buy.
yeah, for sure. And again, I don't think it's a big deal, but if there are women listening to the show that really, really want to get into some women's watches, reach out, by God, and let us know. Our
Mhm.
DMs are open. Slide in there. Let us know what you all want to hear on the next episode, and vote. Let us know because yeah, we'd love to cover some stuff that maybe is a little bit more out there. But for now, I think we're definitely trying to fit and discuss watches that that the audience are listening to and that they're looking forward to. So it did pigeonhole us a little bit on the Cartier episode, but nonetheless, I think the fact that these are the two watches that most, I would say, like 80 to 90% of watch collectors are going to be looking at these two lines or these two collections of Cartier. I think that we're okay. Um,
Yeah.
Another thing, just another way that Cartier is a unique player in the watch space. So,
Mhm.
well, any other thoughts or comments or questions from your side on the episode or Cartier? Any of the watches we talked about today?
I think I laid it all out there. I think that's really it.
Yeah,
Two great options. Whenever I see one in person, I love it. Again, I think they're great. Especially the tank side of things, the must and all are great. Like you were saying, gift presents for whoever, because they're great. Everybody knows the Cartier. They're timeless, they're classics, and they're not going to break the bank for that reason. So,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, David, again for being here with me, man. Really
yep.
enjoyed this episode. And for listeners, the next episode will be coming out 1 week from the release date for this one. So if you're listening today on release day, Monday, July the 10th, the next episode releases on Monday, July the 17th. Again, we backed it up for July the 4th. Just trying to keep everybody out, hanging out with their families, not maybe listening to a podcast. So keep a lookout from that. Will be 1 week, not two. So everyone hope that you all had a great 4th. Have a great rest of the week.